The following program is a production of Pioneer Public Television.
Hello and welcome to Compass, a new production from Pioneer Public Television. I'm Les Heen, your host for Compass, and this is a weekly discussion of public policy and important issues facing our viewing area. This week, a look at the importance of entrepreneurship, particularly youth entrepreneurship, for rural areas and what kind of programs are out there to encourage the future of young entrepreneurs. First, we have the story of how one person took his economics class and turned it into a non-profit business model program. And that's a program that the students will inherit upon graduation. The model works well to sell a specialty salsa for a greater good and to build wells in developing countries outside of our region. Here's a report from Pioneer's Laura K. Prosser.
Associate Professor of Economics and holder of the Elizabeth and Ogden Confer Chair in Entrepreneurship at Gustavus Adolphus College, Paul Estenson has been an entrepreneur most of his life. From guitars to eventually salsa, Paul has circled the entrepreneur block a time or two.
When I graduated from high school, I built guitars and had a guitar shop because I wanted to have a nicer guitar than I could afford to buy. So I built one. I learned something about how technology can affect and change one's business and actually work against you in business. It's an important lesson in entrepreneurship because the Ovation guitars with fiberglass backs and so forth came out, and they were able to be produced for prices much lower than I could ever produce a guitar for. So I figured at that point it was about time to go to college.
Estenson worked his way through college with a singing telegram business, a business he built from the ground up and sold when he hit graduate school. With a few consulting jobs throughout graduate school, Paul finally came out the other end a professor. One that would go on to breathe the entrepreneurial spirit into his students like Jack Anderson.
Docky's Life-Changing Salsa came about because of a professor's commitment and also his students' commitment. I happen to be one of those students, and I have led the charge from that side of things for the most part. But he came to class and he talked about social entrepreneurship and his desire to start a club or a group of students that wanted to explore that. I thought about that and came back to him and said, why don't we take it a step further and create a business and allow students to have decision-making responsibilities and opportunities that internships and other things that students are involved in that often lacks.
We wanted to put together some kind of an organization that would do social entrepreneurship. Use the tools of entrepreneurship, which are incredibly powerful, to not only go after profits, but also to try to deal with some important issues out there. And the one issue that we began to focus on was water. We started thinking about, well, what can we do that might help to deliver water? None of us were engineers. None of us knew anything about digging wells, but there were groups that did know about those things.
However, these students and their professor quickly realized digging wells isn't a free or even cheap thing to do. Even with a nonprofit like Water to Thrive building their wells, they still needed money for their social experiment. And that's when the entrepreneurial wheels started turning.
So what we did then is we took that idea, we thought about it, we said, let's do it. And then, of course, the next question was, well, what are we going to sell? Professor Estenson, Doc E, as I like to call him, came up with this solution, and that happened to be a life-changing salsa that he himself had been producing for a number of years, selling it locally at farmers markets. And I tried it, and I said, Paul, this is the best salsa I've ever had.
We called them Doc E's life-changing salsas because they do kind of change lives in the sense that the profits go to building these wells. And I granted the use of the recipes to the students, and we worked together to develop the recipes so they could be produced commercially and sold in stores, which is a big part of the task. A big part of the challenge was to get a salsa that could be sold in stores that people would like as much as the salsa that we were selling in the farmers markets.
Turns out, developing the product and naming it was the easy part. The real test came with finding investors.
Let's just say that the funding was some out of pocket and some just bootstrapped off the sales of the initial order. You know, we had a very small initial order and plowed all the proceeds that we received right back into buying more. And that's how it went for the first couple of months until we kind of knew that the concept was going to work.
We estimated at the outset that we would need close to $5,000 to make our first order and to start distributing salsa around to the different retailers that we were set up with. And we didn't know where that was going to come from. So what we did is I wrote a letter and I explained what we were doing and what our mission was. And we sent that letter out to alumni and supporters of entrepreneurship that we've met in the past. And amazingly enough, there was a great response, and we were able to raise close to $7,000 in capital to begin our business. And that really, without that, we wouldn't be here today.
Docky's Salsa can now be found in Lunds and Byerly's, on Amazon.com, and at St. Peter Food Co-op, thanks to the efforts of students like Jack, who have now become entrepreneurs in their own right and owners of a business in another.
You know, the salsa business is going to spin off and going to become a independent business where the students who are working with it now will, you know, walk out of here as capitalists, as owners.
What I've learned through this process is that being an entrepreneur is very difficult, but it is also extremely rewarding. The ability to wear the different hats that come with running and operating a business is experience that you can't find elsewhere, and it leads to tremendous professional growth as well as personal growth. I think any entrepreneur would tell you that it's those late nights, you know, staying awake at night, wondering, you know, what could go wrong, what do I need to do, and that really builds the character of the business, not so much the 9 to 5, or in our case, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
With the business running smoothly and a well already built, Docky's is not just life-changing for those people who get to use the well. It's life-changing for students involved in the process from start to finish, a model Estenson hopes to repeat.
What I'm hoping and what I expect is that, you know, we can develop the businesses in sort of an incubator here, but then when the students graduate, just like the students with the salsa business, they can take that business and grow it outside of the college and as a separate entity.
With us now to talk about youth entrepreneurship opportunities in our region, we have from Willmar, Gary Geiger, and also we have from the Southwest Initiative Foundation in Hutchinson, Jackie Turner. And we'll talk about the importance of efforts to encourage youth entrepreneurship in particular. Jackie, Gary, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Jackie, I know during the break we were talking a bit about entrepreneurship, and from the perspective of the Southwest Initiative Foundation and the 18 counties you serve, youth entrepreneurship is part of a broader entrepreneurship idea, right? That we sort of the general idea that we need to get people involved in entrepreneurship, right? That's really what this is about for your organization.
Correct. You know, we've been doing entrepreneurship I've been there for 12 years, and we've been working on it since 2001, actually, when we started the microloan program. And we've got all ages coming, but the youth, we really need to capture them. You know, they are seeing, you know, they're becoming leaders, I think, at a younger age than in my generation. And they're seeing the opportunities that are out there. And then with technology and the educational programs, that there's so much out there for them that our hope is to start capturing more of that.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, Gary, I know that you've been working on this in Willmar, and we should mention by way of a bit of background here that the program you worked on, the CEO program, was actually something our viewers are a little familiar with because we did a program called Keys to the City, and that was several years ago. Craig Lindeval was in this, and the CEO program, I believe, was creating entrepreneurial opportunities, and all targeted at high school seniors. So our viewers have seen it, but you know, now tell me, how is it working in Willmar?
Oh, it's been a lot of fun. We're really having a good time with it.
Good.
It's very exciting to watch these young people take off and become people that they weren't before. They're shy 17-year-olds when we start, and by the end of the school year, very confident and young business people.
Yeah, and I know by way of background on the program, and I know typically it's been done in many communities around the country, but in the case of Willmar, you had to find a group of local businesses who are willing to, invest in the program for about a 3-year program, correct?
They had to commit for 3 years, yes, that was our goal, but we're going to need them beyond 3 years, of course, but I think by then they will be so involved in the program that they want to stick with it.
Yeah, I know that the Southwest Initiative Foundation played a role in helping to get this program started, but the real idea behind the CEO program is you take a group of seniors, maybe 15 or 20 seniors, however many enroll, and then it's an intensive program through their entire senior year, and then at the end of that year, they each have a business of sorts, right? Is that sort of a snapshot, Gary?
Yes. It's a class 5 days a week, starts at 7:15 in the morning for the entire school year. And they do. First they build a business that's for the class, and that class business operates and earns some money, and that money is used for each of the students to be able to build their own business and get their own business started.
And I think when I first heard about this from Craig Linvall, there's a lot of emphasis, of course, in the fact that this student learned how to be an entrepreneur, and that student learned, and they all learn important lessons. But one of the other things is that when he first did this in Illinois, it was fascinating to learn how it changed the students' perceptions of a rural area and what was possible, right?
He tells a wonderful story. He said on the first day of class, he asked the students, how many of you plan to come back to Effingham, Illinois after college? And he said 3 out of the 25, if I remember correctly. Yeah. 3 out of 25 said that they would be coming back. At the end of the school year, after the CEO experience, he asked them the same question, and 21 out of the 25 said they were coming back to Effingham. It changed them. It really did.
Yeah, and of course there's been so much attention paid, throughout our viewing area, through all these small communities. What do we do to keep young people involved, to have them come back, to have them have some interest in coming back? So, I mean, that's really a staggering metric there when you go from 3 students out of 25 to 21 saying that they'd come back. That's a remarkable turnaround that he saw in Illinois. And obviously that's your hope in Willmar or other towns,
that's
right?
Our hope also, that's right. And, we've had bring them home kind of programs and trying to recruit the people that grew up in our community, but they're already gone. These high school seniors are learning that the hometown is really a pretty good place before they leave for college, and I think that's important.
Well, and I should have mentioned too that in Willmar, it's more than the Willmar High School. You have other schools involved too, right?
New London Spicer, Atwater Grove City, and Willmar. So it's a 3 school district project.
Students from all 3 of those who commit to doing this.
That's right. Through
the course of the year. Jackie, sort of put this in a broader, regional sort of context for me. I know this is one example of an entrepreneurship program. Are there others that are really helping to kind of get kids involved?
Well, there's the different school districts that will have, a business, a teacher who will be a champion and, help them start a business and get the whole class involved. Not to this extent, and I'm hoping that this model is going to then, spread out throughout the region, because I know we'll certainly promote it at the foundation.
Yes, I know you will.
Because it's very strict, and for them to commit to 7:15 every morning during the school year, and the little bit that I've seen of it, it's very impressive. So hopefully by seeing what they're doing, it will enhance the other programs that are already out in the region. Because we do need to keep the kids, we need to keep their mindset that you don't have to leave to be successful.
Well, it strikes me that there are really, as I've heard about the program, there are really 2 things that seem to be driving one of these efforts. One is economic development for the region. 2 is youth retention. Are those really as you look at this, are those the 2 things that you think about most when you think about youth entrepreneurship? Economic development and retention of young people? Is that really it?
That's what attracted me, but I also enjoy so much the change in these kids. It's just been phenomenal, and I think we're doing something powerful for them.
Yeah. Give me some examples. I mean, as you sit down and talk with them, I suppose on day one, because these kids have to develop into entrepreneurs and essentially learn to sort of sell what they're doing.
That's right.
I expect if it's what Craig showed us in Illinois, you're seeing a lot of kids come out of their shell.
Mm-hmm. We have an orientation session in August where the parents and the students are invited that have already applied and been accepted for the class. They come to the orientation session, and it's striking that you can't, when they walk in the door, they don't look you in the eye. They're looking down at the floor, and you have to reach out and take their hand to shake their hand. And by October, they are coming across the room with their hand out, ready to shake your hand when they see you, and it's amazing.
Yeah, because I mean, when you're looking at the skills that if we talk about the skills that they're learning to apply, there's sort of public relations, in a sense, sales, business management,
right,
accounting, right?
Yes.
Marketing, and then as well as whatever the technical aspects. With if a kid is learning how to, sell and weld a fuel tank, he's got to figure out manufacturing processes, or in other cases it may be a service, right? Because there's service. They're developing ideas for services and products, right?
Right. It's a pretty broad spectrum. We have some days there'll be an attorney talking to them about business law. Another time there'll be a CPA talking to them about accounting, marketing person in there talking about marketing, and banking. They came to our bank and they've learned. They know most of our loan officers now. So
yeah. Well, because that's one of the reasons why they have to arrive so early, is that a big part of the program is not just them learning what sort of a business they might want to do, but then introducing them to the business opportunities and the types of businesses in a community, correct?
Right.
We haven't talked about that. So tell me about that. They have to get out and they have to go see places, right?
Right. Well, every day the class is in a business place. They have what they call home base, but
sure,
where they'll go, and when they don't have a speaker, but they take tours of businesses. Every element of business is covered before the school year's over with.
Yeah. One of the comments I heard from people who are involved in this said that these kids will step back after this program has been around for a while, or any entrepreneurship program, and say, "Oh, I didn't realize what that building was when I drove by it every day," or "I didn't realize what was in that building. I didn't realize it was an opportunity. I've driven by it hundreds, thousands of times, never knew it was there." So have you seen that sort of eye-opening experience either in Willmar or in other communities?
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. When I first heard about this program, I thought back on my own high school career, and I was fortunate. I had an entrepreneur as a father, and so every night after school, I went out to the plant and worked with him. And I realized when I listened to Craig speak that first time, most kids don't get that opportunity. Most kids don't know what's behind the door of that office that they walk by or drive by, and what's going on. And I think it's very important to show them that there are successful people in their hometown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it sort of breaks them out of whatever pattern they were in, because, of course, we all have patterns. Mm-hmm. Going to work, going to school, going to an event, going to sports, going to church, whatever that may be. And it strikes me that we all get into patterns and assumptions about what's in our community or what isn't. And it sounds like that pattern breaking is an important part of this.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think another key thing is the leadership. I mean, these kids, whether they go to another community or they stay in their own, they're going to step up and they're going to take leadership roles. And they might become also social entrepreneurs, which is very important too. So they are learning hands-on what's going to take them and their communities a long ways.
Yeah, and I know in the CEO program, of course, Craig started it in Illinois. It's been going there for quite a while now. And, of course, it's been tried in other communities and other districts, but it seems like it's really sort of two key things for any entrepreneurship thing. One is you've got to get the right person in place, either as the facilitator or the organizer, and then you also have to have the community support. So, tell us, Gary, I'll start with you. Tell us what it took to get that kind of thing going in Willmar. Was that a long process?
Actually, I was shocked at how well it went. I got the Willmar Chamber of Commerce membership list, and I called it. I went through the list and found businesses that I happened to know had an entrepreneur beginning locally, and sent 300 letters inviting them to lunch to talk about this program. And 80 people out of 300 came, which I thought was amazing. And basically, the 60 businesses supporting us were at that lunch. So out of the 80 people, 60 of them ended up supporting it. So that's how we got ourselves up and running. And then we went to the school districts and said, okay, we have these people that want us to do this. Are you willing to work with us on this? Yeah. And the school districts, one of the school districts suggested that we pick this one particular teacher, Tyler Gerking, and that was a wonderful choice. I mean, he has just really done a wonderful job with it.
Yeah. Well, and as you talk about specific support, we should probably get a little more specific here, because you're asking about a financial commitment from businesses for 3 years, right?
Right. We asked them for $1,000 a year for 3 years, and it's not a really huge commitment in $1,000, but reason we didn't ask for any more than that is because we wanted 60 of them. Sure. And we wanted to make sure that they all had equal involvement in this thing. Sure. And because it takes 60 to get enough speakers and enough mentors to run the program.
Sure. And then they have to, also help in assisting or arranging or being willing to host as these classes go out. If you've got 60 businesses, you at least know there's that many places where they can go and learn and be hosted. So there's a time commitment there as well, isn't there? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Jackie, imagine this replicated in other areas.
I can see it. I can see the bigger communities outside of Willmar. I can see them grabbing a hold of this and taking it, but I'd like to see it in the smaller communities. And our school districts have really, consolidated, so there's a lot of small communities, but this definitely is something that I think, you're on your second year. This is your second year. And I think after the third year, we're going to see it in other places. And there's going to be, you get those community champions like Gary that know people, that helps. And the passion, his passion spoke, and obviously it worked. So you find those community champions, you give them the tools, you've got the model. I see it growing.
Yeah. Now, I know many people who are watching this in our viewing area, they might look at Willmar and say, okay, it's the biggest town in the viewing area. You're obviously going to have a large Chamber of Commerce list. But there are other communities. So scale this a bit for me, if you would. I mean, do you think this is doable is there sort of a benchmark where you can imagine it in towns of 5,000 or more, or multiple towns? Any sense of how this program could be scaled in other communities?
Well, I do think that it's going to take something close to 60 businesses, no matter where you are, because of the level of involvement that's necessary. And it's going to cost them, in today's dollars, $60,000 a year to do it. Yeah. So you really need that amount of money, but at the same time, you need that amount of mentors. You got to have, every student needs a mentor. Every 5 days a week, we have to have a place to go and somebody that talk to us about their business. So. It's a big commitment for the business people.
Yeah, and we haven't really talked about the school district engagement piece as well, but obviously you also have to have the school districts, or in the case of Willmar, it was 3 school districts. In some cases, it might be 4 or 5 or 6 school districts where they're all willing to engage, right?
That's right. Now, and you do understand with this input from the businesses, it doesn't cost the school district that money is paid. It's paid for.
Yeah, so it's more a matter of the school district having an interest, being engaged, seeing this as an interesting opportunity, and then having some comfort, I suppose, in the fact that it's not entirely new; it's worked somewhere else.
That's right.
Which probably helps move it along. We just have a couple minutes left. Just want to talk about the future of youth entrepreneurship. Obviously, CEO programs working in some cases, but if people want to figure out what are some of the ways to approach youth entrepreneurship in their own community, what suggestions would you have? Anything in particular? There
are so many resources out there. The Southwest Initiative Foundation, we cover the 18 counties, so we have tools and resources. You have the Southwest West Central Service Co-op. They do a lot with youth. It's just the Small Business Development Center, your chamber. I mean, there are so many resources out there, and nobody should be afraid, excuse me, to reach out. And kind of what we're doing, like what Gary's doing and what we do at the foundation, is we're reaching out to the kids. We're out to the public saying, we need these kids to stay. We need to see these businesses come. And with technology, I didn't have this opportunity as a youth that they have today, and I'm so excited for them.
Well, and you mentioned some of the Southwest West Central Service Cooperative is based in Marshall, but serves a very large area. Small business development centers, they're located in different areas, but I know there's an office in Marshall, Minnesota. And so people can kind of look around and just do some searching. It's not too hard to find some of those resources. Gary, your thoughts?
Well, it's very important that we bring these kids back home. Yeah. If you look at a business, usually they had an entrepreneur that started them, and then they've run for a number of years. And sometimes a business will last 2 generations or 3 generations, but most businesses do have a life cycle. And we as a community leaders have got to provide businesses to fill those gaps.
Okay. Good point to end on. Gary, Jackie, thank you very much for being with us. That's it for us this week on Compass. Join us next week as we take a look at how small-town newspapers and radio stations are fighting some misconceptions about rural media.